You are going to fall in love with the process because everyone tells you how hard it's going to be. No one tells you how inspiring the whole process is.
Hi, I'm Natasha Gillis, and here's a little secret. One of my favorite things to do is drive around town and proudly point out each dental practice my firm has helped grow. Because behind every practice is a real story of grit, vision, and entrepreneurship. On this podcast, you'll hear those real stories straight from the dentists who dared to build something of their own. So tune in, get inspired, and remember, your practice is my passion. I am here today with Dr. Hoyos, with her practice, Hoyos and Pinto, her husband. Mm-hmm. It is so great to see you today.
Thank you so much for having us. We're excited. I'm excited to be here.
I know we are. We're going to put like his photo here. Yeah. Pretend like he's here. Hi, Dr. Pinto. Good to see you. Is he working today? He couldn't be with us.
He is working in the morning somewhere else and coming in the afternoon to join us at the practice. As we are a startup practice, we're still doing, work elsewhere, except me. I'm actually full-time at our office now.
Which is incredible. So you guys officially opened your doors, what, a year barely?
Mm-hmm. December 5th of 2023. So we met the year mark a month ago.
That's incredible.
Yes. Huge milestone for us.
Because it takes time to pick the spot, do the construction, get the equipment.
Yes. From the moment you start having the idea, when the seed is planted, it takes a long time to find the right location. Once you find the right location and you sign the lease, everything goes at super fast speed.
I warned you guys.
Yes, you did. And it was, everything comes together and you just have to make decisions every single day nonstop. And at the same time, we were also expecting our first baby. So there was a lot of moving parts. So construction takes roughly between 4 to 6 months. And then, permits also, we have to wait for that. Once those go through, we actually get to see the construction happening. And at the same time, you're working on other things like getting credentialed with insurances, your marketing, your website, your branding, all of that. So when you're opening doors, so many things had to have aligned in the perfect timing. And then you think, okay, the worst is over. But let me tell you, it's kind of like pregnancy. You think the pregnancy part is the worst up until that baby is born. And then you're like, I had no idea what I was talking about. This is easy. Way more hard. Yes. Yeah. So that's exactly how it felt like. Once you open doors for a startup, because everything's new, you have to test the equipment in a way and learn how to fix it on the spot. So the first 6 months there's a lot of troubleshooting.
Really?
You sometimes a handpiece will stop working and you're like, I have no idea what happened. Or like the X-ray machine will stop working. And you just have to be so flexible to just figure out, think on your feet and say, okay, how do I fix this? How do I make the rest of my day work? It's kind of like a baby. Yeah. You do things perfect one day and then you replicate the same thing the next day and it just doesn't work the same way. So the analogy is perfect. It's literally like having a child.
Well, what's incredible to me is you guys were able to get on your feet relatively quickly with your own patient base. I love your marketing.
Thank you.
I'm always trying to thumbs up it, even though my Spanish is not good.
That's okay.
And I'm like, wait, I think I can understand bits and pieces of it. Mm-hmm. So share with me a little bit about your background. How is it that you're able to focus your target market on? Is it true that your target market is truly the Hispanic population?
Correct. So
tell me a little bit about that.
I am from Colombia, and I grew up there up until age 15, and my husband his dad is Bolivian, and that's actually one of the reasons why we met in dental school was because we were one of the few with some sort of Hispanic background. And, I never thought that would help me so much. Like, fast forward 10 years, or I can't even think whenever we met, the Hispanic population, those patients have been the lifeline of our practice. Like if it wasn't for that, I think the struggle would be much greater. And I wasn't necessarily lying when you write a dental school essay and you say, why do you want to go into this field? And you recognize there's like an access to care for certain minority groups. And you say, well, I want to bridge that gap. I want to help in some way. And sometimes in the area that you choose to live, you just don't know how many people you're going to serve. And it turns out the moment we started focusing our marketing efforts towards the Spanish speaking population, they just started coming out of everywhere. And I mean, around the Burke area, Ashburn, Leesburg, we have people that come from Maryland. Wow. Just because they found us on Facebook, which, by the way, Facebook is our #1 referral source. They find us on Facebook, and then they get to us. Sometimes they call us and they ask, where are you? Really? I don't even know your address. Yes, they just see the ad. They see us speaking in Spanish and saying, they're like, listen, I've been waiting for years. I just had a patient 2 days ago that said that they were going to Fredericksburg to see their dentist, and they live in Falls Church. And they're like, well, you're much closer. And it's just such a unique experience to be able to just chit chat with them and say, just tell me what's going on. And they're like, oh my God, I have so much to tell you. And they just need a minute to just unfold like all their life, why they got, because it's not just teeth. It's like the person attached to the teeth. What made it get this far in terms of, and a lot of that, there's a lot of shame that comes with that, a lot of guilt. And we just had to sit there and listen. There's nothing else that requires the first 15 minutes of the conversation. I'm just here for you to tell me your story. And once they unfold, I say, I get you. I understand. Let's come up with a plan that serves you best. Because at the end of the day, I can try to do all I want to do, but we have to meet them a little bit halfway. And sometimes it means they want to get all their treatment done in one setting because they drive from Maryland and they took the full day off from work.
Which is a big deal.
And it's a big deal. It's a big loss. And they're like, I cannot afford multiple appointments. We make it happen. Sometimes we've had to meet people on Saturdays because also commuting is far and they have childcare and work and all that. Sometimes it just means, okay, let's come up with certain payment plans that actually fit your needs, and it's just walking them through that anxiety. I've had people that have never seen a dentist and they're in their 60s and they're coming to me saying, I've never seen a dentist. And I say, but you have majority of your mouth you have so many missing teeth. They're like, I have pulled my own teeth or they're falling out by themselves. I am not lying. I'm not making this up. And it's like, then we, treatment plan, the extraction of the rest of the teeth and some implants or dentures or whatever. They're like, well, this is the first time I actually have a tooth pulled by a doctor. So you hear everything. You hear it all. And you just become so close with them in a way. So it's nice that the one thing that's making our practice profitable and sustainable, that is also the service that you wanted to do from the beginning. Exactly.
Yeah. We're so privileged, I think, that sometimes we don't realize that access is not, if you're in a certain demographic or a certain area, these things can cause these problems, and they're real problems. We talk about it under a microscope when we're in an educational setting, but we're not really focusing on it because it doesn't really mean anything to us. It's a academic topic.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's really awesome, the fact that I am talking in Spanish more in our office than I am in my house. I mean, this is how I grew up. So it feels very, very homey to me. And at the beginning, there's a lot of apprehension because, sometimes I am a doctor trained in the U.S.
Yes.
There are certain philosophies and ways that people that come from other countries have experienced in the past. And it sometimes takes educating them about how the healthcare system works in the US. And it's just so much easier to just look them eye to eye and speak in their language and say, let me give you a little background of why things work the way they work here, and where, and the things that I can do for you, and then the things that I cannot do for you. And once you tell them, I haven't had any issues with anybody objecting or just trying to challenge that. They're like, I understand.
That's
This is,
incredible.
yeah.
It's also your communication style. I can only assume. I mean, you're so pragmatic. A, B, C. So, I mean, even just being able to conceptualize how you're going to deliver that. I mean, not a lot of good people are communicators, period.
Yeah.
Much less. Now we add a different element to it, communicating to a different group of people, which, you know, I can say, having parents that experience this, if you're out of a region long enough, you become acclimated to the current area, you know, the
Exactly.
US culture. So I can only assume it might be a challenge for you to kind of touch base or touch roots again, say, oh yeah.
And I think one of the things that I have been working really hard to try to have the mindset of trying not to follow, not to the word that I'm trying to say is not to believe in stereotypes. And a lot of us fall into that at some point with any patient that we see. And I have made it my project to make the culture in my office so clean and all revolving around kindness. So when someone comes in angry and complaining about how many doctors they have seen and no one has been able to meet their needs, I saw a I took a risk management course recently, and something resonated with me so well, which is when someone is angry, there's usually some tint of truth in what they're saying. There is a reason why. And if you listen close enough, you pick it up and you're like, this is why you're angry at this industry. This is why you haven't had, because you had an expectation and no one probably had the time to sit and explain to you why this is done a certain way. And once you just kind of de-escalate that, you have a patient for life.
Yes.
Because they just say, I never knew that.
Yes.
And if I had known that 10 dentists ago, I probably wouldn't be in this situation. So a lot of that is that. And a lot of it is you have to give people so much grace, because you just never know if they're having a good day, a bad day, and all that. And one of the things that, you know, sometimes we fall into the trap where we say, oh, you know, Mrs. So-and-so, you know, she's, you know, I tell my team, I'm like, we don't say anything behind closed doors about a patient that we wouldn't say to their face.
That's a great culture
And
to
we
have.
don't ever say anything bad. We say, no, this person might need a little more TLC.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the extent of it. But once we come into that mindset, knowing that like we truly are friendly with them, they notice that and they sense that. And there's so much de-escalation that happens from there. And I think that dealing with people with other cultures, that's number one, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of miscommunication, a lot of anger in certain things, a lot of anxieties and fears. And I don't understand why I'm paying this much for this, or like, I wasn't aware of X, Y, and Z. It's all about that. So my consultations are always an hour long, and I have a very low fee for my consultations. And I don't charge anything extra if I have to take a panoramic film versus the one x-ray, or it's the same. And if they come in and they say, I only want you to look at, I have a problem with this tooth. And I'm like, I get that. I'm going to look at everything, because there's nothing more frustrating sometimes than saying, hey, we only checked that one side, but then now you're having an issue here. They're like, well, you did look in my mouth.
You didn't tell me this.
You didn't tell me this was. So I've learned to cover my bases. And I think sometimes when you get too busy, you start thinking, okay, how can I make my schedule more efficient? Like consultations are the one thing that I just don't skimp off. And they're my least profitable hour. I tell you, this is not the time to make money. I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to get a patient to stay with me forever.
Right.
To say,
Comfortable.
and that eventually money comes after that. I mean,
course.
that's the focus. And if I have a loyal patient, I get a lot more grace from them too.
Yes.
Because if things are not going my way on a day, they're like, it's okay, doc. Don't worry. You're running late. No problem. Oh, something happened. We need to reschedule. It's all good. Everyone gives me the grace. And that's something I feel like it's been way more fun working for myself, because around all those things, I'm just happy to come to work. I'm just happy.
So I'm curious, we had another podcast where our speaker afterward was teasing. He's like, never work with your spouse. And we were laughing about it. How is it working with your spouse, your partner, your true partner in business?
Oh my
and
God.
life?
I love working.
Remember,
with
he
my
might watch
husband.
this.
I know. That's
So
why
be careful.
I'm going to say the honest truth. I love working with my husband, and it's not always the easiest days, but here's the thing. I admire the things that he knows about, and he admires my strengths. And there's a lot of things that we don't have a lot of overlap in. And we actually collaborate and delegate. And we say, you're best at this. I'm best at that. I'm going to take these jobs. You take those jobs. But also we hold each other accountable 100%. I have no problems telling him I would have done this X, Y, Z. And he has no problems telling me we would have done this X, Y, and Z, because we have a growth mindset. We're like, anytime there's a mistake or something that we could have done better, we need to acknowledge that so that we don't make the same mistake again. We also go to therapy like anyone else. We have the same couples therapist. She sees him on Mondays. I talk to her on Thursdays, and we work a lot of the issues that sometimes we can't work ourselves.
Yeah.
So we bring a third person and we say, hey, this happened this week. And then she talks to him separately, and then we talk together, and boom, done.
That's it.
Let's move on to the next thing. Why? Because at some point we were sleep deprived with a baby.
Yes.
Sleep deprived with a practice. Sleep deprived because you're going into this enormous amount of debt, and you have no patience to start with.
That's
And you're
challenging as a
just-
new business. It's scary.
It is so scary.
And I tell everyone, when you get into that startup journey, that first dollar you earn, it's going to take a lot of time and effort.
Yes.
As opposed to acquiring an office. It's a little bit different.
It's so different. And sometimes he has to be my rock, and sometimes I have to be his rock.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm the one giving in the 100% to keep, and sometimes it's his. So we need, without our therapist, oh my God, our life would have been so much more difficult, because a lot of these anxieties are in our head. Is the future, is that the fact that we don't know how the next month is going to look like, how 6 months are going to look like. And we're thinking about our child, our house, our family. And you have a third person saying, challenge your thoughts. Not everything you think is true.
That's right.
And because she brings us back from that ledge, I'm much happier for it. I mean, he can answer for himself if he's happier for it, but I'm sure he is. He tells me all the time.
Well, that's one of the biggest issues with business and life also, is we are so concerned about the what if.
Yeah.
In terms of the bad what if. We're not thinking necessarily of, but what if in a good
If the
way.
good stuff happens, what if it's awesome, right?
Exactly. And that's normal human nature when you have risk adversity. You don't want to take risks that are going to result in failure. But if you don't really look at it that way,
Correct.
and you focus on what's in front of you and what you can control,
Yeah.
which is I'm phenomenal at creating a target market and focusing my target market and delivering my communication, because I'm a great communicator and I'm a great dentist and I can provide feasible plans for these folks who need me. That's really what you need to focus on, as opposed to, oh my gosh, we didn't see X many patients this month, because business has its natural ebbs and flows.
It's what my therapist would say, the circle of control.
Ah,
There are certain things you have control over, and other things you don't. And for those that you can't control, let it go.
That's true.
Let it go. You're going to have better days.
And so within the circle of control, where do we put your little daughter? Is she in the circle or out of the circle?
It depends on the day.
Exactly.
Oh, no. My daughter is almost 2 years old, and I had to lean in hard on the village that I had, which is I had to ask for help, because sometimes we get into this mentality that we as women, business owners, can handle it all until you start feeling sick and you start feeling like something's going to happen. And you got to listen to your body and you got to ask for help. I had to have all the help anybody that offered help, I took. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. And I couldn't do this without my husband. I couldn't do this alone. I couldn't do this with my daycare. I couldn't do this without my mom, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my siblings. Anybody who offered something, I took it. And it was shameless and it was guilt-free, because I just came to terms with the fact that I cannot do it all.
You know, I find this a challenge for myself.
Yeah.
In accepting help.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, even if someone just offers it and says, I don't mind, we feel like we're putting something on that person by accepting the help.
Yeah.
Or conversely, internally, the dialogue becomes, I don't need help. I got this, right? It's like a defeat to accept help.
Why are we like this?
I don't know.
Where do we learn that?
I don't know. Isn't that interesting?
It is,
especially as moms.
It is insane to think that a single person can handle all that stress without breaking.
Especially a second little person, and especially a family, and then add to it another big baby, which is your business.
Exactly. So if there are days where I only see my daughter 1 hour a day, and that's only in either the morning or at night, I need to know that during that hour, nothing else exists. And I had to set so many boundaries, even around my practice, to try to prioritize a baby too. For instance, if I had started this practice before having a kid, I know I would have been in there till 7, 8, 9 p.m. doing documentation, doing X, Y, Z. But now there's a baby. And I got to pick that baby up by 5:30. So I don't care what's going on. My last patient needs to be scheduled no later than 4 o'clock. And I have to move all my chess pieces to make sure that baby gets picked up. Yes. And then for the next hour, my attention goes nowhere. I am with that child. Then the child luckily sleeps at 7. Oh, that also required a lot of grooming. That required a lot of grooming. But after that, I go back into the business. So what are things that we did knowing that ahead? That, hey, I'm not going to be able to stay in the office till 10 p.m. I'm not going to be able to finish all my notes maybe because I'm running late. So we're like, we need a cloud-based software, something that I can access from home. We need to be able to have telephone lines that can be answered on an app rather than on an actual direct phone line.
That's becoming the new thing, by the way.
Exactly. And embracing that technology was a game changer for me. Being able to take calls over the weekend, being able to text patients through the software directly, all of those things allowed me to do what I do, because I have every second of my day, anytime I have an opportunity to shave a couple of seconds off, is more time I get to spend with my daughter. So technology nowadays with a startup practice is the most fabulous thing. And it makes me wonder how people did it 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
To be honest, and this is something I was debating with a colleague in the practice of law, very similarly to doctors, we had set hours. Yeah. You had staff was very focused on making that person, that producer's life easier. And it was more about clients bending down to that person's time as opposed to becoming the party that is providing the service, if that makes sense. There was a little bit of a difference because
Yeah.
we had dedicated call hours.
Yep.
Email didn't exist. It was literally, and I still laugh at colleagues who do this, they will snail mail a letter
Yeah.
on letterhead, and which is great. I mean, kudos to them. But by the time that comes to me, I could have just opened an email a few days ago and gotten the information faster. Things have changed.
Yep.
And in that sort of revolving change, I think that we become more focused on performing constantly. There's no turning off that clock, because if we don't do it, someone else will. So that's where sometimes it becomes a challenge. But I dare say, as parents, you know, too, you're like, I have never worked so efficient in my life.
Oh my goodness, did I learn how to work efficiently.
Yes.
It is like clockwork. It is so, I can't remember the last time I had a whole day watching Netflix.
No,
I
I
feel
feel
guilty.
guilty. You're going to get to that point where your husband will take the baby out and you're going to say, oh, I have a whole day to myself. And then you say,
Oh my God,
what do
am I
I
gonna
do with it?
I'll probably end up scrubbing the floor somewhere
That's
or something.
exactly what happens.
Why did
and
we
then
do that?
In 2 hours, you look at your clock and you say, where are they?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I
It's
miss them.
incredible.
Come back.
This is weird. I have time to myself. Things change so quickly.
It's you become just so selfless and it's good and bad, you know, because sometimes what I learned pretty quickly is that I put everything else first. I put taking my daughter to the pediatrician first, making sure everyone's predeterminations for insurances and every patient got taken care of first. I made sure all my team got paid on time and left at a decent time and came first. And I forgot to make appointments for my own doctor for a full year.
Yes.
And that was terrible because by the time I actually made it there were so many things wrong with me that now I had to go in this cycle of like, okay, I guess I got to take vitamin D, vitamin B12, thyroid, blah, 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 X, Y, Z. And it's because I neglected my own health. And then you wonder why patients come to you and they said, listen, I didn't have time to make it here. And I look at them, I said, I know, I get it. I've done that too. And you just become much more compassionate, I guess, with people because you did it.
Yeah.
You did it. You proved them right. So startup, I think number one is to realize you are the golden, the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Yes.
If you don't protect that goose, you got nothing.
That's true.
Nobody can take care of your family. Nobody can take care of your team and your practice. So prioritize your own health, I guess.
If you can.
If you can, when you can.
Aspire to do it. Goals. That's true. That's very true. So last question, and this is a loaded question for you.
Uh-oh.
If you could go back in time
Yes.
and sit yourself across the table, maybe 2 years ago, and say, hey, I've got something really important that you need to know about starting up your own office. What would be that? If you can reduce it to one tip, one key tip or one thing that you would tell yourself.
You are going to fall in love with the process. Because everyone tells you how hard it's going to be. No one tells you how inspiring the whole process is. Like designing a layout, picking colors for your practice, finding the right team. All of that, when you have a vision in mind and you see it getting built. I don't think I've ever experienced. I think there's a few occasions that I can say can top that, when maybe I graduated dental school and my daughter was born and I got married. But this is just wow. And I can see why people do it over and over. I don't know if I'll do it again because it's just too early, but it is one of the most inspiring processes. And I know this because now that the construction's over and we've been up and running for a year and we're kind of getting into a rhythm, now we're starting to build our other operatories to furnish them. And just seeing the cabinet maker come in and take measurements and talk, I felt those I don't know, all those emotions again, like, oh, we're
Here we
having
go
construction
again.
again. This is going to be fun. And I know it's not entirely fun, but it is inspiring. And it's something that you feel so proud of. And that's why anytime I have somebody that's doing a startup and I said, look, it will be hard. I know. But enjoy it. Oh my God, enjoy the construction. Enjoy the photo shoot you get at the beginning with for your branding. Enjoy building the website. Enjoy it because it is such a cool thing. And not everyone gets to have a career in dentistry and say, I built an office
I
from
built something.
scratch.
Yes.
That is just
That's incredible.
wow. So I would say that.
That's an awesome ending statement. I love it. Thank you
you.
so much
You're
for coming
welcome.
here and
Yeah.
sharing your nuggets with me.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow and share this podcast with a friend in dentistry. And if you're ready to take the next step in your own entrepreneurial journey, connect with me. I'd love to make your vision a reality. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep practicing your passion.